this is my review for True Fear Forsaken Souls Part 1. For $9.99 in the eShop, I feel like this is a good value. It's not too scary. It's a horror setting, but really it's a puzzle game. It's a puzzle game that's about creepy stuff, and things are happening to you. The graphics aren't all that great. The cinema scenes, the cinematics that are full 3D rendering, they're straight out of the 90s. It feels like one of those old school Tomb Raider games. But it's actually like the gameplay really helped me keep going. Next thing I know, it was 4 hours later, and I'm still playing the game. The puzzles are good and intuitive. It's challenging for a bit, and then there's a lot of payoff, right? I don't know, the graphics. Let's stick to the formula. Let's talk about graphics. Graphics, I'm gonna go ahead and give it probably somewhere in the neighborhood of a 6. It's a point-and-click adventure, kind of, but with puzzling elements too. You have to find objects and use objects later. The graphics aren't that great. It's a lot of still images, and the things that are 3D rendered aren't that great. But the drawings are pretty good. So like I said, I'm gonna give it a 6. But gameplay, I'm gonna give it a 9. I really enjoyed the puzzles. That you find objects, and maybe the first part you find a bunch of objects, and you kind of know what they're for. Valve handles and a knife and this and that, and then later on in the game you'll find this long sequence where you use the knife to open a bag that had another thing in it that you could tape the valve handle onto the pipe, and then when you turn the water on, the water is flowing, and you have a bucket, and then you fill the bucket, and then you use the bucket to fill a thing that floats something else at the top, and that kind of stuff. It does a really good job of like keeping the pacing going, but then having like a small section where you're challenged with puzzles and finding objects, and you're trying to do things. I feel like it does a pretty good job. And it's a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. I kind of played the first act, and I thought, oh, okay, this is kind of it. It's about an hour and a half. And then it opens up into Act 2. And Act 2 is even more complicated. And like I said, 4 hours later, I'm into Act 3, and I think I'm at about the halfway point. So there's probably like 3 to 4 acts on this thing. Audio-wise, it's kind of a mixed bag. There's not completely spoken dialogue, but there is quite a bit of spoken dialogue that is recorded, and it's pretty decent. And the music is pretty good. It's not terrible. It's not repetitive. I don't get bored of it. So I'm going to go ahead and give the audio a 7, which is a better than average review. And then story-wise, at first I thought it was kind of hokey, but now I'm kind of getting into it, and I kind of want to find out what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and give the story probably a 7.5, which brings this game's average to 7.5. It's pretty good for $10. That's the thing. It's not a AAA title, but for $10, 7.5 is a really solid rating. And there is a part 2. I believe it's out already, but it's also $9.99 in the eShop. So I could see True Fear being a pretty fun game. And there are adjustable difficulties. There's a skip option and there's a hint option. And the more you increase the difficulty of the game, the less those options become available. They're kind of on a cooldown. You can only accept a hint every so often. So you can increase the intensity of those, and also the different types of puzzles. Some of them are hidden object, and sometimes the puzzles are interactive action. So you can customize the game a little bit depending on your comfort level with how well these puzzles are. I thought it was great for $10 in the eShop. I recommend picking it up. It'll probably go on sale for probably $5, maybe, at its 1-year anniversary, something like that. So I definitely take a look at it for $10, and for $5, it's probably a must pick if you're into puzzle games.